Hello, and welcome to today's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where we're going to look at Friday's puzzle from the Times. This was one of my favourite puzzles of the last few weeks. I don't know who the setter is, we never know with the Times crossword, but whenever this guy comes up, I'm a big fan. There's so much invention and originality about his cluing that it's always a pleasure to solve. Now, there are a lot of clues that need discussion today as a result of that, so I'm not going to spend too long on each one, but I will go through it so that everyone can appreciate what's going on. So, first clue, actually, this was a write-in for me. I don't know whether I was just lucky, but Minister's measure of spin. So you just needed to come up with the thought about revving an engine there, and then so it's rev apostrophe s is the wordplay, and then I think I failed to solve one down when I first looked at it, but this is a good clue as well. So the definition here is reviews, and then you need to come up with a word which means some toast beginning with R. That's doable. And then the good times, well, a three-letter synonym for the good times, and that was, I think, what was hard to spot. But pause if you need to. And the answer was roundups, so the ups are the good times. 9 across was nice and easy, although it was slightly difficult to spot that it was a hidden. It is indeed a hidden, and you get that from the component in. Is telling you look inside the letters of modern annually, and then put back is saying, well, if you look inside those letters and reverse them, you'll find the answer. And if something's without a label, it's unnamed. 12 across I loved. 40 on board a single flight assisted, and the whole thing is actually a cryptic definition, but very difficult to see. So when I first read the clue, I thought 40 on board. Well, 40 I thought was probably hinting at the Roman numeral, which would be XL, and I was trying to put that inside an expression that was 6'3" long, and I was getting nowhere. But I think once you get the right thought in your mind, which is well, it's the World Dart Championship at the moment, going on for those interested in such things, and if you think about darts, you can quickly come up with double top, 40 being a double top, and flight referring to the flight of a dart. Now, wagon train official in front. Now, the official in front would be the vanguard, van being a word, meaning at the front. And a wagon train is a vanguard, so not too difficult again once you had some letters, but brutally difficult if you didn't. And here we got an interesting anagram. I'm sure many of us are familiar with the Edward Thomas poem Adelstrop, and so you read this sentence here: Adelstrop is a fantastic work of poetry, and it seems, well, a pretty accurate sentence. Certainly there's nothing in that clue at all. If you read that in the paper as an opinion of somebody, you wouldn't think it was a cryptic crossword clue, and yet it is. So fantastic there is telling you need to anagram the letters of Adelstrop is a, and if you do that, believe it or not, you can come up with Paradise Lost, which is an incredible coincidence and a brilliant spot by the setter. 4 down was nice. The reason I think 4 down is very clever is that the definition is so well hidden. So you read this: do books sound mostly tedious at first? Again, it's sort of a relatively reasonable sounding sentence. But the definition here is actually do books. If you do the books, somebody, you in the sense of how an accountant might do the books, you audit them. And then you have sound mostly, which is audio without its last letter, followed by T at first for tedious. So Very nice clue again. Now I haven't checked the wordplay for this one, but it's quite incredible. Let's just go through it. So, unaccompanied neighbour of C&R white, comma, female. Now, 1-8 is the enumeration. So, and if you look at what we have in the grid, I think most of us could probably come up with a word or two words that mean unaccompanied that would fit here. I'm putting it in now. And I presume that Andy Cap in the cartoon is a neighbour of C&R White. In fact, I'm just going to check that. And the wonderful internet confirms that, yeah, indeed, Chalky and somebody else White were the two characters who also appear in the cartoon. So, yeah, I mean, it was sort of doable, that one, simply because it's such a strange enumeration of 1-8, but very originally clued. Okay, so this one's very doable, I think. The reason I say that is that Chicago Gangster is just screaming that the clue must have some reference to Al Capone, and often, obviously, that appears as Al in crossword clues. So particularly when we have an A at the start, we can be pretty sure we're looking at this sort of construction. Remember, we've got a 3-letter word, so unless it's beginning with ale or alf or something like that, it's almost certainly going to be all. So that tells us it probably means total, and then it's going to be a pun on somebody who's a fan of Al Capone. So have a think if you need to, pause the video, but we're looking here for an Al lover, which, if we say it slightly differently, becomes all over, which means total. So which one should we do now? Oh, this was just brilliant. So, small boy, upset about groups of Santa's helpers being collected. Well, this is one of those clues where I think you can get it from the letters that you have in the grid already by having a bit of a guess at what it might be, but then you have to sort of study it for a while to convince yourself as to why. So, groups of Santa's helpers, I was thinking elves, E-L-V-E-S, and that sort of helped me to guess at the first word here, which is actually self. And then we need an expression meaning being collected. So have a think if you need to. I'm going to put the answer in, self-possessed. And what we've got here is small boy, which turns out to be Des, being reversed around the outside of elf potties, believe it or not, for groups of Santa's helpers. And yeah, I've not seen elf posses before. I suppose it's relevant to this time of year, but in a different way to the darts. Very clever. So, adhering, we'd see at the start of the next clue, beginning with P. So immediately we should be thinking homophone. So we need a homophone of the word prosecuted, which is going to give us a word which means fraud. And I think to prosecute, probably the most obvious short synonym is sued. And then all you have to do is come up with the fact, okay, well, if we say that, we can spell it like this, and it will mean fraud. 3 down was 3 across, was relatively straightforward. So mutant has 10 arms. That spells trouble. Again, we just needed to read the clue correctly. We needed to not view the word mutant here as a noun. Mutant is telling us that we need to mutate the letters of has 10 arms. And if we do that, we can come up with a word which means trouble. Again, pause if you need to. This is good practice to try and do this. Also, try and do it in your head. Try not to write it down. That's a way to improve your speed. The technique I use, which I'm sure everyone has their own method for doing anagrams in their head, but I sort of imagine that the letters of has 10 arms are rising up off the page and then moving round in a circle. So I imagine them in a circle in my mind, and somehow that seems to help me to to unscramble them. And we're looking at harassment there. So 7 down. Was green, or well, let's read it the way I'm sure the setter was trying to hint it. Was green jockey going through finish? Again, a very good surface. But the correct cryptic reading is to read this as was green, and then imagine a gap, jockey going through finish. So we need a short word which means finish, and then a short word that means jockey, which we're going to put inside that word. And especially when you've got letters, there's very few possibilities here. And obviously the most obvious short synonym for finish is the word end. You can see if we put that in here, we're almost done. We just need to think of the word vie for jockey, and we come up with envied, which obviously means was green in the sort of jealousy sense. This is another clever surface. So blast experienced after impact, just shells going up. So we needed to, what you need to do here is to think about what shells might mean in a wordplay sense, and it's trying to get you to think about the shells of the words, i.e. the extreme letters. So if we look at impact, for example, we're just looking at the I and the T, and if you take the extreme letters of experienced, after and impact and reverse them, you get the word tirade, which is a blast. This clue. My knowledge of religious festivals is not the best, so as usual I spent a long time trying to remember this word, and it's so annoying because I'm sure for a lot of good solvers this is just a write-in. So, fast Sunday bike riders frenzy, I'm gripped by it. Well, believe it or not, what we need to do here is to divide the clue after the word Sunday. So the definition here is fast Sunday, i.e. I think it must be a Sunday within Lent. I'm not actually sure, but I presume that's the case. And then we need 2 words meaning a bike rider's frenzy. And eventually I managed to come up with quad as being likely to be, you know, that's a sort of bike. Could even be I didn't really think it was a rider's frenzy, but then we need a word which means frenzy, and then the trickiest bit here is I'm gripped by it. Might suggest we're putting I'm in the middle of a word which, you know, which means rider's frenzy, but no, what the setter's done here is he's used it. Is sometimes seen in crosswords as an abbreviation for SA, which is sex appeal. So, you know, if somebody's said to have it, they're said to have that quality of sex appeal, SA. It's very hard to see this when it does come up because obviously, you know, it just doesn't seem that like it could possibly be hinting at an abbreviation, but here it is. So we've got I'm in SA at the end of this, and then we need, the only real way to get this is to know the word, I think. Quadragesima, which is, I suspect, as I say, something to do with a day in Lent. Now, this is a clever clue as well. Letter for one young Suffolk lawyer. Now, the way I got this was by realising, after I'd first read it, and I was reading 20 down, and my mind was still on 19 down, and I suddenly thought, oh, maybe it's the name of a Greek letter. And I could think of a short abbreviation for lawyer, which is DA. If you think of that, and you have the idea that it might be a Greek letter, well, I'm sure we can all come up with lambda. Oh, although I'm sure you'll spell it better than me. And lambda, then you just have to remember that a Suffolk is a type of sheep. So one young Suffolk is a lamb. Stop when all at sea, maybe, with a jumbo. Well, This one, I think, this is a fairly common word you do tend to see in crosswords, and I think that's because it's such a useful filling word. Because if you have a construction, a 5-letter construction, which is A blank T, then you're either looking at a weight or you're looking at this word, really. So you do tend to see a vast quite often, which is a nautical term meaning to stop. And a jumbo, a vast, something's jumbo size, it's big, is what's going on there. So that, again, I think that would be a write-in for experienced solvers, but very, very difficult for new solvers. This was a very clever clue. Outlaw and doctor have united in jail. So again, very good surface. And for a long time I thought I needed to put the word jail around the outside of an abbreviation for doctor, of which there are many, and a U for united. So I did think it ended in up, but I was trying to put a sort of a 3-letter word, probably for jail, around the outside here, ending in P, and I couldn't think of one. I kept trying to think of can, which is not going to help. Whereas actually the construction of the clue is different. What we're actually looking for here is an expression meaning to jail, and we need a short word which means outlaw, followed by a short abbreviation for doctor going around the outside of the U for united. So short synonyms for outlaw, well, that's not too difficult once you have the thought that this is what you need. You need the word ban, and then a GP goes around the U for bang up, as into jail. Exotic striptease Papa having replaced tango for starters. Well, I think I would advise anyone who wants to get good at cryptic crosswords to have a passing familiarity with the international radio alphabet. So if you know that, you know that Papa and tango are words for letters in that alphabet, and we need to exchange here the T in striptease for a P as in Papa, anagram it, because exotic is telling us to anagram the letters of striptease, or strip P's in this case, and then that's going to come up with a word which means starters. So not too difficult once you have the right thought. Social inadequacy have youth not allowing females to board coaster. I haven't actually passed this one yet, so I think, again, once you've got a few letters in the grid, you can have a guess at what the answer is. Not allowing females to board coaster. So a coaster you might be able to see is a mat. So we've got just men. So maladjustment. Okay, yeah, so the way this is working is you've got mat, which is a coaster, and then that is surrounding youth, lad, not allowing females, just men, all inside the mat to give maladjustment, which is social inadequacy. Another very nice piece of wordplay there. Maybe 11 things left by singers or 2 left by barbers. Well, here again, very clever surface. This setter really does take the trouble to make the surfaces read properly, and he's done it very cleverly in this case, because the way I read the clue wasn't really going to help you to understand the sense in which the setter is using singers here, because he's actually using it as singers. So maybe 11, well, 11, you tend to get 11 in a side, so that's what that's getting at. And then things left by singers are burns, and that leaves you with 2 things left by barbers, perhaps sideburns. A beautiful clue. Worry having hold on spy. Well, this is the answer, obviously, given the letters in the grid, fairly obvious. Bugbear. And the way to get this is to realise that spy here is bug. If you bug someone, you spy on them. And then hold is to bear. So hold on bear, or hold on spy, sorry, is bug then bear. So yeah, it's one of those clues that I often struggle with because the hold is coming before the word spy in the clue. In my brain, I want to put the word bear here before the word bug. And the on doesn't really help me, because although it's totally fair to say that, you know, to do it this way round with this wording, you know, my brain just doesn't see this as the first possibility, and therefore it struggles to resolve it. Right, we're nearly there now. So this was quite doable. Cold fish, one potted, one smoked. Well, we just need to remember here that C can often be an abbreviation for cold. Once you do that, and we know we're looking therefore at the other side of the clue for the definition. So we've got one smoked or smoked. I don't think it's too hard to come up with cigar, and then you just need to justify why. And well, a gar is a type of fish, and one potted, we've got the one inside C and the gar. So not too bad. Let's have a look at this one. Well, there's a famous episode of The West Wing, for those who enjoy it, where Leo, who is the chief of staff for Josiah Bartlett, rings up the New York Times to complain about the spelling of Gaddafi in the New York Times crossword. And even though I'm very familiar with the scene, I can never remember how to spell Colonel Gaddafi. So I was very reliant on the wordplay to give it to me here. So reflected whether to include a grand. Well, whether, add, if. So we've got if reversed, add reversed, and then AG for a grand. So if you, I think I'll probably put that in to start with. That's not going to help you. I think there is a spelling somehow that involves a Q, but or maybe that was what Leo McGarry was complaining about, can't remember. But anyway, luckily for us, there's enough wordplay there that we can eliminate the other possibilities. Spotted flyer, one badly torn on road. Well, spotted flyer, you should be thinking of, okay, that sounds like the name of a bird. And you should also be thinking about, why hasn't the setter used the word bird here? And if you have that thought, you can be pretty comfortable that's likely to be the end of the answer, and then it's just a case of working out why. So that's especially true when we've got on road here. So, you know, RD is a very common abbreviation for road. So, you know, this ending is very likely. So one badly torn. Well, torn is a very common anagram indicator. So we just have to have the correct thought here, which is, okay, I could be looking at an anagram of an A or an I plus the word badly. And if you have that thought, then you can get ladybird, which is maybe not a feathered bird, but it's a type of spotted flyer. Helps to track earlier episodes. Helps, backs. To is just plain. And RY for railway, which is again an abbreviation you sometimes hear, and that is a form of track. So that's how that one's working. And then boss's report incomplete. Well, probably the most straightforward type of clue, in the sense that I think it's obvious we're looking for a word which means boss. Then the wordplay is going to be a 5-letter word which means study, where we're going to remove the last letter. Sorry, report means report. The answer is, of course, study. My brain's getting ahead of myself. A report being a study, it's not the most straightforward synonym, but again, I think it's, you know, there are so few short synonyms for the word boss and it always tends to be that you're looking at boss in the sense of a stud or a knob rather than a boss as in a head of a company. I don't know why, but that just does seem to be the case. And we're left with 16 down, which is a really nice anagram, because it just doesn't read like an anagram. To walk it needs varying amount of power. So beautiful anagram indicator there, which is needs varying, which is telling you to anagram the letters of to, walk and it. If you do that, it's very easy, obviously, because to see it's kilowatt. But I spend some time not realising that. So I hope this run through was helpful. I've gone through it reasonably detailed today because it's such a good puzzle. And we'll be back with more crosswords and Sudoku over the next few hours and days. Thanks for watching.